Exit routes this way, and this way. 3 routes to exit your business. Welcome to the Profit Cash Growth Podcast. This is the podcast for 6 and 7 figure business owners who are looking to grow a financially successful business. My co-host Claire Hancock is a finance director, chartered accountant and entrepreneur. And every week I'll be exploring guidance and frameworks designed to help you increase your profits, improve your cash flow and grow your business. Well, what on God's green earth was that film we watched last night?
We went to the cinema to see The Substance, didn't we? Which was filmed by Demi Moore. And the concept is, she's been a big superstar. She's got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and she loses her contract because she's now over the hill and they recruit a 30-year-old, or actually probably more like 21-year-old to be fair, to replace her. Yeah. And it was this thing that she could basically inject herself and have like a clone of herself who was much younger.
And fitter.
My God, it was like kind of a little bit like a softcore porn movie. I think there was a lot of men in that cinema that were very pleased with the film that they were watching.
There was a lot of nudity of all sorts involved in it. And then there was just outright blood and gore, like on a level I've never seen before. It was just not what I was expecting. She was on Graham Norton the night before, promoting it like it's some really mainstream film, and it felt like quite a cult. Like, I mean,
it was a bit Quentin Tarantino-y, wasn't it?
They left the cinema.
The first 2 hours of the film was very good, actually. Very clever storyline. Yeah. I've not seen anything like it before. But then the last half an hour, I don't know what happened. There was some sort of alien invasion that just sort of like, at one point, they were just like fire hosing everybody with blood. It was
horrific.
Absurd. I could not stop laughing. And to be honest, if we weren't right at the end of the aisle, I think we would have left. The ending was that bad, wasn't it? But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that was The Substance for you.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's not a news story of the week,
is it? Would you recommend going to see it? Watch it at home.
Yeah, I'd say watch it at home and then turn
stop
off.
After the last
when the blood starts happening, just turn off because it's weird.
What do you think about this quote? Because I've been rereading a book, a very famous book, and this quote was an interesting one. There are no limitations to the mind except those we acknowledge. Both poverty and riches are the offspring of thought. What do you think about that quote?
I don't really know how to take it. I think, put it
deep, in it? Deep.
It is quite deep. And I'm not really sure what context it's meant to be used in, because I don't think poverty is the thought of your mind. But then is it? Because are you poor compared to who? Compared to what? So, very philosophical.
It opens up a lot of analysis, doesn't it? Interesting one. Anyway, let's move on to this week's news story of the week. So, in this week's news story, I want to talk about Meta and their smart glasses. This came about a few different things. I read a story recently this week talking about their tie-up with Ray-Ban and launch of smart glasses. And then I listened to Mark Zuckerberg on a podcast who was basically talking about how they are betting the house on their smart glasses being the next big thing. But the question is, Claire, is this the death of the smartphone? And as you also rightly put it, contact lenses potentially.
Yes. So smart glasses for anybody in our audience, because you weren't quite sure on.
I'd never heard of this.
Well, so I mean, Meta have done this for a few years, and Google have had some tried and failed. They've been around for a number of years now. Actually, at the moment, you can buy glasses, essentially.
Ray-Bans?
Yeah, Ray-Bans. They've teamed up with Ray-Bans, and they essentially have a camera in them, so they become a little bit like a GoPro or your own personal camera. You can record everything you're doing on your daily basis. You can have, they link to your iPhone, so you know that bit on your iPhone where you can turn the camera around to the front-facing, back-facing, where you can now also say front-facing, back-facing, eyeglasses camera. So basically they've got a camera and they've got a headphone. And
which you just told me about sounds shit.
Yeah, for like £400 for a set of glasses.
I don't need that.
They showed a couple of uses for them. Firstly, there was a guy in a clothes shop who picked up a shirt and then said AI what trousers would go with the shirt, and the glasses could, because of the camera, they could analyse the shirt and suggest some trousers.
Does he not have a brain he can't think for himself?
Well, I don't know. Another really good use for them, quite niche, but a very good use, which could benefit quite a large amount of people in the world, but still a small percentage of the overall population, is they've got something called Be My Eyes, which if you're short-sighted or visually impaired in any way, you can wear these glasses, and using AI, you can make contact with a volunteer who can describe everything that's in front of you. So maybe if you're not sure whether you can cross a road or whether it's safe to enter somewhere, maybe you can't quite see everything properly, or if you were completely blind, you can wear these glasses, contact Be My Volunteer, and they can look at your environment live for you and talk you through a scenario. So that's, one amazing use of smart glasses. However, what Mark Zuckerberg is talking about now is the next generation of smart glasses called Orium. And these are going to be launched in 2027. And these are what we think of when we probably think of smart glasses, is that at the moment, smart glasses are just normal glasses with a camera and headphones in them. These smart glasses are going to actually have like screens built into the eyes.
Yes,
so
this
you
is
can
what he was talking about.
See things around you a little bit like if you've ever worn a VR headset.
So my immediate thought to this is around privacy, because you know how angry I get about privacy and Ring doorbells and whatever else. So now I'm in a situation where the cleaner goes into the ladies' changing room and just broadcasts all the naked women over the internet. Is that where we're at now? And nobody knows about it because it's built into their glasses.
Well, that's interesting.
Scandalous.
But I imagine that there could just simply be like a sensor built into certain door frames, like toilets, like changing rooms, maybe schools.
We're going to build infrastructure around these glasses.
Well, I think it's the future, isn't it? In 30 years' time, is this going to be what it is? And it triggers the glasses and they stop recording in those areas potentially. But I said to you, my instant reaction was, I was like, oh, what's going to happen to contact lenses? Because if you are wearing, normal glasses or contact lenses or something like that at the moment, why would you not upgrade to have these smart glasses instead if they're going to be so good? So I thought that was really interesting. Specsavers in trouble. But also then smartphones, if you can read text messages and browse the internet and do everything, essentially have a computer built into your eyes, you don't need a smartphone anymore. So what will happen to Apple? Maybe Apple has had its day, and we've seen the latest launch of the iPhone wasn't that successful and Apple's share price started to drop. So maybe I actually had a conversation with somebody I was at an event and their son was there and he had been investing in Apple, and he said the share price has dropped, so he was going to buy more. And I said, just be a bit careful, because at some point Apple will just continer to decline. And
well, they're not the
maybe
biggest.
This is it.
They're not the biggest phone out there, are they? Samsung are anyway. Yeah. That's just a fact. But there's so many flaws to this still for me. It's okay. So it replaces a phone. So how are you searching? How are you telling the glasses to search for a keyboard?
Voice.
You're going to go and walking around talking to yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we're all going to do. We're going to look like absolute mentalists.
Well,
it's a good point.
We're not doing it, so we won't look like mentalists.
But we won't, because mass adoption doesn't happen at the click of a finger. So who's going to be the first person to go out walking around the street talking to himself? Oh, and I've got to get on a train or a bus while people are chatting to themselves, searching for the news and whatever else.
It's got voice recognition, so it can recognise your voice. You know what I'm like with technology. I love tech, and I would happily walk around looking like a mentalist, because I think people are going to look at me and they're going to look at my glasses and think, she's cool. She's got those cool new glasses. So I don't care about that. I don't care about looking mental.
Whereas I'm going around in like a complete mute filming changing rooms. Is that what? There's so many uses. This is just a bit MI5 for my liking.
But it's happening.
You say this about everything. You said this about electric cars the other week and somebody absolutely slated you. So, you just don't know, do you? I don't think you can ever say anything happening. Like people said Betamax was happening. You're looking at me, you don't know what Betamax is, do you?
No.
Betamax is happening, and it didn't. It died.
Betamax like a video.
What about HD DVD? And it didn't happen, did it? Blu-ray did it. And like, there's a graveyard of things that were going to happen and didn't happen. So let's just be a little bit careful about that.
The thing where I'm not so sure how it works is I'm not a glasses wearer. I've been blessed with 20/20 vision, even at my age. And so I don't need glasses or contact lenses. So for people like me, and obviously the chances of you needing glass or contact lenses, the older you get, increases. But therefore, are people that already need some sort of glasses going to be more susceptible to this, because they're like, oh, I can spend a few £100 on glasses or upgrade to smart glasses, versus somebody like me that's got to go and buy glasses for the first time? That's where I'm not quite sure.
I mean, the market is massive for people in glasses. It's just whether they're prepared to wear the glasses instead of contact lenses. Because actually, I can't remember the stat that I saw, but actually the amount of people that wear some form of corrective eyewear, contact lenses, or
it's 85%. It's
massive. It's just you don't know it because most of them are wearing contact lenses, especially women. So it's
that was a random statement.
No, they do. I don't know. I don't know.
Factual, or?
Yeah, more women wear contact lenses than men, much more. I don't know if it's just a looks thing. They give a shit more about what they look like than a man. I don't know. They could all convert to glasses because they need them, and therefore they get the benefit of the AI smart stuff.
I think that's the bit that's not clear to me, though. And Mark Zuckerberg didn't really talk about that. What he did talk about is that these are not lenses in these glasses, they are screens, and it's a completely new technology of screen. And therefore, can these screens also correct your vision? that's not quite clear to me. So will these replace glasses, or actually are you saying that you would have to wear contact lenses and then wear these glasses over the top? All of this is sort of yet to be decided. I'm not sure whether these are an alternative for people that already wear glasses, or whether they're actually just meant to be, like you'd wear a watch, just technology for everybody.
The business side of this says I'm more interested when I listened to what Mark Zuckerberg was saying about at the moment, like he sounds a little bit annoyed about the fact that he's constantly at the mercy of the hardware providers, the Apples and whatever else. And he'd like to be able to own a bit of that hardware space or whatever else. And he's kind of there at the moment. They're betting that this will be the thing for them. But what if it's not? And where will Facebook be in another 5 years? I know they've got the cash to do different things, but they are doing different things. And Oculus, the VR thing, is it really took off? I don't know.
We had an Oculus, didn't we?
Yeah, it's really good fun, but it's a fad. I mean, nobody's sitting there day in, day out. This thing about
once you bought the plank and picked up the donut, what more do you do?
The biggest advert on Oculus now is to watch the cinema on it. So it's like you're at the cinema, and it really is. It's amazing. But you've got this great big clunky thing on your head.
Heavy.
You're sat in an airport with this great big thing on your head, like you're in the cinema watching. I think there's too much friction. There's too much friction in it at the moment. I don't think Meta are there yet with what they want to do with their business. The Orion smart glasses are 100 grams, just to put that in perspective. Now, I have no idea how much a normal set of glasses weighs, but because I've never worn glasses, but I imagine maybe they're about 50 grams, 60 grams. Yes. So actually, they're not going to be that dissimilar to wearing normal glasses. So I can see how these become, dependent on price point, far more accessible. There are lots of issues around privacy that I think you rightly used. However, I think the vast majority of the population, we have unlocked our smartphones to our lifestyle. They listen to us. They record everything that we're doing. You've got tracking cookies and voice recognition, all those sorts of things that we don't bat an eyelid at. So I think adding that to then say that, we're going to let technology record. With phones, we've already turned the entirety of the general public into the biggest surveillance team in the world, haven't we? The second anything happens, everybody grabs a phone, films it, and it's fantastic for governments because they've just got video evidence of everything at all times within seconds.
I mean, also, you just look at TikTok and how many videos are there on like TikTok and these other platforms that are just people's ringing bloody doorbell, capturing the Amazon driver and God knows who else.
Don't get me started on them.
We're not allowed to ring doorbell, are we?
Absolutely.
No.
I despise it. There are laws about recording out into the streets onto things. I don't know how they get around those laws, but I don't know.
But we think that the launch of smart glasses, I think it threatens Apple. I really do think it threatens Apple.
If they get it right, if they get this right, it absolutely could. But I think there's something around the corner that will threaten Apple constantly in the next 10 years because I think they're at a peak where they need to think about what they're going to do next. There's no new products coming out.
The reality is people like Apple technology, and Apple make really good hardware. So they'll just bring out their own glasses as well.
Sure. But it's not Apple making it. It's made in China, isn't it? Everyone can use the manufacturer that they use in China to make really good hardware. I mean, it's not Apple as such that making the hardware.
You can get an Apple alternative iPhone, but you don't. Everyone, well, particularly in the Western world, people tend to go for Apple. So
some people do. It depends if they can afford it, I guess. Anyway, that's our news story of the week. It's
the end.
It's going to be an ongoing news story as it develops. We'll keep you up to speed with this
Apple
one.
And Specsavers. Who would have thought those two would have been put in the same sentence?
No chance. We'll see. Anyway, let's move on to this week's deep dive, where we're talking about three routes to exit your business. So, Claire, this week we're going to give a bit of a live example. You've been working with a business. We're not going to tell you who the business is, but we are going to use their numbers to give you some perspective. But effectively, they want to exit their business, and there are really only three routes. And you're going to talk through them, aren't you?
We are. So this is a business owner that I've worked with for a couple of years now, and they've recently turned 60, and they're kind of at that point where they've had enough, and they want to start thinking about enjoying retirement. So we've been talking for a little while about what that exit could look like, and honestly, they just haven't really got their head around it. So we've focused on a few other things, but now this is really, they're at that crunch point now where they have got to decide what next. And so I crunched some numbers for them and gave them the three different scenarios from a financial perspective of what it would look like them exiting their business.
Okay.
And I was able to boil it down to three options that they've got. So the first option is to sell the business, completely exit. The second option is to keep the business, as in be a shareholder of the business, but to not work in it day to day.
Okay.
And then the third option is just to shut the business down.
Okay. Completely walk away.
Yeah, completely walk away, shut it down. And what's really interesting is that those three scenarios in that order, sell, keep and close, they obviously selling the business, they're going to get.
Could we do? I've got an idea. Could we do this in a different way? Okay. Perhaps could you go through the financial outcome for the 3 aspects?
Yes.
And then could you rate out of 10 how easy it would be to do each of those?
Well, that was exactly what I did. That's what I was about to say. So we'll start with closing the business, okay? Because in terms of ease of doing that and the risks associated with it, as in how much money they're going to get paid out, that's the lowest risk and the easiest to do. And we could turn this around in a couple of months.
Okay.
So what would be involved is we'd have to make all the staff redundant, so we'd have redundancies to pay, and we'd have to sell off all the assets and then go through the formal close down process with HMRC and Companies House and any creditors and things like that. And I did a calculation that said, okay, let's pay everybody, let's pay all the taxes we owe, let's pay redundancy to employees, shut the business down, sell the assets. How much money would you have left after you paid all your taxes? So how much could you take out of the business? Now, assuming that all the business has paid its taxes, you as an individual have still got taxes to pay. So when you sell or dispose of an asset, so shutting down a business generally is referred to as disposing of an asset, regardless whether you sell or not. So it's subject to BADR, which is like the old entrepreneur's relief.
Yeah. Do they get the reduced taxes, the business asset disposal relief?
Yeah. Up to £1 million is 10%.
So you get that when you sell or if you close?
Or dispose, So up to £1 million gain, you pay 10% tax on, and then over that, you're in capital gains tax territory, so 20 or 40%. So if they were to shut the business down and sell all the assets after the business has paid all the taxes, the money available for the business owner to take away would be about 500 grand. Okay. And I just want to put some context on this. This is a bit.
What's the percentage of tax on that under BA?
Be 10%. They pay 10% on that. Yeah. So they walk away 450 grand. Yeah.
Okay.
So to put
not a massive amount of money.
Context on this, the business turns over about 2.5-3 million, and at the moment they make, depending on turnover, 300 to 400 grand a year profit before tax.
And after the owner's taken a market salary, or
no, they just take the 12k and then they take dividends.
Okay, so if they were paid a market salary, what would the profit be? Still be reasonable.
250.
250,000.
Yeah, before tax. And this business has been trading about as a limited company about 15 years, and they were going as a sole trader before that.
Okay.
They've got assets. They've got quite a lot of equipment. Probably about £1 million worth of equipment.
Okay.
So most of that 500k is going to come from selling the assets. And
are the assets fully owned, or are they on finance?
No. So paying off the finance.
Okay. The net position.
Yeah, paying off the finance, selling the assets. So that 500k is kind of dependent on market conditions. You know, if they've got quite a few assets, so putting them all onto the market at the same time. So even that, I put a fairly conservative estimate and said, actually, we say they're worth about $1 million, but probably let's get 750 for them.
And I know their assets are specialist assets.
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
not a huge market for them.
Market, so it's not a huge market. So there's a bit of uncertainty around that.
So for a business owner that's just turned 60, 500k one-time payment, that's no pension of any kind.
After 15 years work, that's their exit.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, they've taken reasonable salaries out of it over its time and it makes a good profit. But
the first thing I did for this business owner, just to put some context on the situation, was I looked at how much money they'd taken out of the business over the past 6 years.
Yeah.
So I'd looked at how much salary, pension, dividends, director's loan repayment, all of this sort of money added up. How much cash had that business owner been living on? And it was about 85k a year.
Okay.
So that 500 grand is going to last them, 7 years? On their current lifestyle.
Uninvested, yeah.
Uninvested, yes.
Yeah. So, okay, so that's...
We could have that.
That's simply closing down the business. So
and we could have that done and dusted in a couple of months.
So it's quick. So financially, out of the 3, financially, you would rate it out of 10 where?
Well...
Financially only.
For somebody of his age, a 3 or a 4. Versus the other option. But I think it's dependent on their circumstances, because if you were to say to me, you could shut down this business that you've had enough of and walk away with 500k, I'd snap your hand off, because I'm of an age where I would reinvest that in something else. I'd reinvest it in other assets. I'd reinvest it in another business.
There's only 3 options here. So compared to the other 2 options, how would we rate them? I guess irrespective of age.
At the bottom of the 3. It's the lowest payout.
So out of 10?
3.
3 out of 10. And ease of doing, or...
Easy. So, he could literally walk out the business and pay somebody else to do everything for him. You just need to get a HR consultant to write some redundancy letters.
8 out of 10?
And an accountant. 9 out of 10.
9.
Dead easy. You can walk away like that and somebody else will do everything
Literally
for him.
pay somebody to
Yep.
deal with the mess.
Yeah.
It's just a bit like that film we watched the other day where the guy died and then you just send in the cleanup team to just clean it.
100%, yeah. Because this
great.
does happen when people die and there's literally
Yeah,
nobody in
I
the family.
guess so. I guess so.
literally
Yeah,
10
yeah.
grand, you'd have this
a company
wrapped
just
up.
deals with it.
Yeah.
And takes a fee for
Yeah,
it. Okay, that really is easy.
So
easier than I thought. I
easy.
assumed you'd be heavily involved and emotion involved in, laying off staff and various other things. It's quite difficult, but you could literally just walk away and let somebody else deal with it.
Yes. Theoretically.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so dead easy, really low payout, which is like usually what you'd expect in life, isn't it? So, okay. Next.
So the next option is to keep the business. So they would have to get the business to a point where there's a management structure in place. So this is why the complexity of this increases a bit, because they'd need to recruit a new managing director, probably beef up the team a little bit more than it is at the moment. And that in itself would take 12 to 24 months realistically of onboarding the new managing, so recruiting, onboarding, and then making sure that business is run well before they step back. And that's likely to be, I suggested to them over the next 3 years, if we started recruiting for a managing director now, over the next 3 years, you could probably transition to not being involved in the business on a day-to-day basis and maybe having a call with the managing director once a week, once a fortnight, that type of thing.
Yeah. And most important to touch on is the things that aren't easy to analyse is A, how would this person have the skill set to be able to do this and how easy would they find it? And B, and you know why I'm asking this, do they have the mindset to be able to do that?
Yeah.
And explain what I mean by the mindset.
Well, as a business owner, you are going into your business, you should be going into your business every day thinking, how do I grow my business? That should be like your primary focus. But most employees turn up to work and think, how can I just do my job and get through the day?
For 15 years, this person's done it. So,
and to be fair, this business owner kind of said, I love my business, but I'm not turning up to work every day thinking, how can I grow my business? I just want to get through the day and go home to my wife and enjoy my life. So we needed to look at the financials and say, actually, probably the business owner is potentially holding this business back from growing now. And a new managing director might, we would hope, should be increasing the sales number, growing the business forward. So we did a couple of different scenarios and said, okay, if the turnover stayed the same, if the turnover grew by lots of different categories, so we could see what the potential upside was. We also said, okay, we need a really, really good managing director. So we allowed 150k worth of costs a year for this person, for car, pension, good salary, bonus, everything. We put the full works in there. And we also said, look, as the current MD, you're probably working 60, 70 hours a week and a new MD isn't going to do that. So we're going to have to put an additional team member in as well. So we allowed another 50k of general employee cost to beef up the team and put some extra resource in.
So before you've done all that, the profit's now way down from where it currently is anyway.
Yeah.
And
because at the moment, bear in mind, they're making 300 to 400k per year.
So let me...
So they're making 300 to 400k at the moment. We put in roughly around about an extra 175k of costs.
So the question to my mind is that, you might say, great, they're making that. So after all that, they're still going to be able to take 100 grand salary, quite happy to fund themselves through retirement, whatever else. But if they've only been taking about 85 grand a year and that profit's not built up, then, and they make a profit of 300 to 400, where's all the money gone?
They've been buying a lot of assets, so a lot of it's been reinvested. Their profitability, they keep in the business because they have to pay for debt, so they don't have the cash to take the money out.
Would that stop moving forward so that therefore they could take a salary? That's the question.
Well, to put this in context, worst case scenario...
Or they could take a dividend from their investment.
Yeah, worst case scenario, after tax, the business would make 100k profit. Best case scenario, under a new manager, a very capable managing director that is growing the business and pushing it forward, because this is a business that, it doesn't have any sales processes, for example. So there is a huge opportunity to grow this business just by doing some basic, customer account management of the existing accounts, for example. They could easily grow this business. And so worst case scenario, they're going to clear 100k profit a year.
Yeah.
We got this up to 500k just by putting 20% on the sales.
Okay.
So...
I memean, is there an ability for them to actually draw the dividends to fund their retirement out of this? I.e., is the cash available? Or because that's, it's all very well talking about profit, but we often know that profit doesn't mean the cash is available to actually take and fund their retirement. So Is that a factor?
So on these numbers, 100 to sort of 400-500k profit after tax, we're actually talking about profit after tax, and that's allowing for depreciation.
Yeah.
Now, for this particular business, the depreciation actually equals roughly their debt payment every month. Therefore, when we're talking about the profit, we're also saying that's going to be roughly the same amount of cash coming into the business clear every year, assuming that the way cash flows in and out of the business roughly looks the same as it does today.
Yeah. Okay, I guess there's a number of questions about whether the profit and the stability of the business would remain stable. So therefore, if this person, it's their retirement play, and as you've said, the most important thing is they want to spend time, with a free mind, to spend time with their wife in the later times of life, how, knowing that their entire lifestyle is funded through this one investment, they've got all their eggs in one basket, do you believe that they can switch off from this business enough?
That's a decision for them to make. However, I always think that this is a really good option, because actually, when I said to this person, look, you need 85k a year to live, your business with its current assets, your assets have got a lifeline of maybe 15 to 20 years. So for the next 15 to 20 years, you could take somewhere in the region of 1 to 300k out of your business as dividends every year without needing to reinvest, and just keep your business ticking over for another 15 to 20 years. So that...
And you're never going to task any new MD paid 150 grand in your right mind with just, all I want you to do is just tick the business over.
Exactly.
They're going to want to grow the business. If they're any good, they're going to want to grow the business.
And especially if you put the right incentives in place. That's why, bearing in mind when we were looking at the profitability and the turnover scenario, so we did lots of different scenarios. We said if they decline a little bit and only do 2.5 million, if they stay where they are and they do 3 million, if they go up to 3.5, 4, 5 million, we plotted the different scenarios, what the profitability would be. And in all of those, we had different payouts for the managing director, so that they're appropriately remunerated for increasing and growing the business. There was also, you could look at share options and things like that potentially for the new MD as well,
to hook them
to make sure that they are incentivized to grow the business. But that's also why we had such a big budget of around about 150k for this person, because you've got to get the right caliber. You cannot scrimp on this role.
Okay, so keeping the business and putting the MD and team in place. So out of 10, financial reward for the business owner?
6.5.
6.5, because they're going to be taking good money every year to fund their retirement, and they're still holding onto the asset, which in theory, if they get the MD right, then grows in value. So at some point they could still sell. So actually this is quite a big play that could work very well.
It's medium risk.
And how difficult out of 10 would this person find it? I guess that's the key, isn't it? This person's got to execute it. They're the owner of their business. So
I think this person would really struggle to recruit somebody of the right caliber for this role, because I think this is what I would call like an accidental business owner. Like, this business has not grown to the size it is because they've had a clearly defined strategy that they've implemented every year, and they've read books and listened to podcasts and got help. I think this business has literally accidentally grown year on year because of the industry and the market that they're in.
It's a really good tale, isn't it? That just being persistent and staying with something 15 years, and you can actually, have a pretty sizable, reasonable business at the end of it. Just being able to see it through.
So I think that the new MD would be far more capable than the existing business owner, and I think the business owner on an emotional level, I think the business owner on an emotional level would find it difficult to recruit that person and work with them, and therefore I think they're likely to recruit the wrong person.
Okay, so relatively high on the difficulty scales on this one. Okay, cool. And then we're going to move on to sell the business. And obviously this is what everybody dreams they're going to do one day. This is what this business owner has spoken to me about for a number of years now, that they'll sell the business one year. But this definitely
is
easier said than done, selling in businesses, isn't it? As we always know.
Yes.
Finding a buyer at the right price.
At the moment, this business is completely unsellable. They don't really have any... I've got to be careful about how I use my words here. The MD is of a certain capability. So we've talked about recruiting a new MD anyway, and the difficulty they'd have with that. They've also recruited what I would call steady Eddie employees. They've got employees that sort of turn up to work every day and do their job and nothing more. Which
you would expect, because if that's their view as the owner of the business, they've recruited what they want in the business, which is people that hold the fort.
But that isn't an attractive proposition for a buyer, but
at the right price, it's an amazing proposition because there's so much upside to be had. That's why if I was looking at this as a buyer, I'd be like, you haven't done this, there's actually like a handful of really easy things you can do that could just turn the dial on this.
Yeah, that's
if you got it at the right
true,
price.
But you can only do that with the right team in place.
Yeah,
these are not team members that generally adapt well to change, take on the challenge. They are literally just turning up to work every day and keeping things ticking over.
Yeah.
They're not thinking about how we can improve, upsell,
of course,
be more efficient. None of those things even enter these people's minds on a day-to-day basis, and they're not interested either. A couple of them are at a certain point in their life where they're just like, I just want a salary, please. And
so the biggest problem for any buyer would be they've got to replace the whole team anyway, so that's very high risk.
Yeah,
the inexperienced disappears.
So therefore it honestly makes this business completely unsellable in its current state.
Yeah.
So this is the biggest challenge. So I did some calculations and sort of worked out what this business would be worth. And I looked at multiples that similar businesses are sold for in the same industry of the same sort of size. And
we're assuming it had an MD and it had a team that was interested, that was, attractive and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. And, you could be looking at a 3 to 5 times EBITDA multiple. For this business, potentially more. So really, this business owner, if he could get the right team in place, would be looking at 2 to 3 million.
Yeah. So potentially big payoff, masses of work to get to where that would need to be.
Yes.
Which again is like, well, if your business is currently at X, i.e. completely unsellable, therefore it's worth 0, you would expect that to be able to get a payout of 2 to 3 million, that there's some hard work involved, or that's really hard. It's not going to be easy, is it?
Yeah, and I think the other thing that was a bit of a dose of reality for this business owner was that I said to them, it's if you've got an MD in place, then fine, you can sell the business and walk away, as long as there's sort of golden handcuffs on your MD of some kind for them to stay in the business. But if you don't have an MD in place and you're planning on selling the business and putting an MD in place at the same time, you're going to have to stay in the business for normally somewhere between 12 and 36 months to manage that transition.
Yeah.
So actually, the road to selling the business is very similar to the road to keeping the business.
Okay.
And that's why they go up in order of risk. So close the business is easiest, keeping the business is medium, because you have to put a new team in place, but you're still overseeing everything. So you can dip in if needed, and you can test the water. You can see what it's like to go down to 1 day a week and, see if it works. And if it doesn't, go back up to 2. And but selling that business is very finite.
Yeah,
your business has got to be at the right point where you can step away and that business continues to function as somebody's prepared to put 2 to 3 million on the table to pay for it.
Yeah.
And getting your business to that point is very, very difficult.
Very difficult, but very, very rewarding. And if you can get the right power team around you, people like yourself, accountants like yourself to support, management consultants to work with teams and things like that, it could be hugely rewarding. But again, you've got to have that mindset to want that fight yourself.
Yeah.
And when you reach a certain part of your life and you're thinking about a different path, actually you're about to go into a big fight and possibly you don't want it.
And the reason why we're having this conversation is because we started having this conversation 12 months ago, and I did a similar analysis and put the different options on the table, and they said, okay, let's start to beef up the team, and they needed like this operational role, and they went and recruited the operational role. And I said, look, you've pegged the salary at, I think it was about 50,000, and I said that's going to get you the same person that's already been in your existing team. And I said, they didn't drive the business forward. You weren't able to delegate any of your work to them. So I said, we need to beef up that role. We need to increase the salary. We need to go up to like 70,000. We need to get somebody that's got that next level of expertise. And they offered the job to somebody that they knew. And
oh no!
And it was the 50k person that's literally come in and just taken over the old person's processes and kept everything the same. So this business has just completely stood still for 12 months. And now he's saying, I'm really fed up of this. I want to go down to 3 days a week. And I'm like,
you can't.
You've got another 2-3 years of work to do before we can get there. Which is
why I said everything's about mindset, and it's just
But that's why closing the business 500k
suddenly looks attractive.
All things considered,
because it's now just got more stressful, not less stressful, and at a time where you're trying to ratchet down the stress. Well, there you go. If anyone wants to get their hands on a cheap business with lots of potential, then there's definitely a bit there. But interesting to, I think most businesses at some point are going to grapple with these 3 decisions, aren't they?
Yes, but it's so incredibly important that you don't start grappling with this decision once you've had enough.
too
you
late.
have
Plan
to
ahead.
plan ahead. And even
Understand your numbers.
when we're building our businesses now in our 30s and 40s, we are thinking about what this would look like.
Absolutely. Always. I always say you can't really plan 15 years ahead. But I
disagree with that. I think you can.
Okay, I don't work like that. I find 5 years is always, I'm always working 5 years ahead. I want to know where I'm going to be in 5 years because I do believe, and I've always in my life been able to look back and I've always achieved those 5 year milestones. I think if I went out 10, 15 years, I think I would miss the milestones one way or another. It's too far out to there's too many variables over that length of time. So that just works for me, but for some people, yeah.
When it comes to building a business and exiting your business, honestly, I think clothes should never be on the table. If you're building...
You never want to do that.
Exactly. So
it means the business is not good. You've not built a good business.
You've not built a good business. You might be clearing good profit, but it's so dependent on you being involved in that business that you need to build a self-sustaining business that you can exit, or a business that works without you. And so therefore you have the option of selling it and completely walking away, or you have the option of keeping it and being a silent shareholder, or just turning up to a bi-weekly meeting or something like that. And every business owner should be thinking about doing that.
I know. I just thought we've called this podcast Exit Routes This Way, and This Way. And I think basically closing your business is like jumping out the plane, isn't it? Rather than getting in the pilot seat and landing it safely.
But you've got to learn how to be a pilot. You've got to learn how to fly a plane, and you've got to practice doing it. Yeah, you can't all of a sudden decide when you're the only person left in the aeroplane that you don't want to jump out and you need to fly it instead. And I think that's what a lot of business owners do, is they're like, oh, no, I'm not ready to jump.
I love the analogy, but you've lost me completely. Thank you very much, Claire.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Again, people constantly talking about and thinking about their exits. I hope you found that really, really fascinating and interesting. And let's move on to this week's Profit Cash Growth Extra.
Now, you've got this week's Profit Cash Growth Extra, haven't you, Simon? And I don't think that there is anybody in this world that listens to more podcasts than you. You always have your blooming AirPods in your ears, don't you? Like 24/7.
I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I read a lot of books. There's not a lot else I do. I mean, I'm just I like to
YouTube.
Learn. Yeah, I watch a lot of YouTube, yeah. I'm sure a lot of business owners, we talk to a lot of podcasts, are a big thing for business owners.
You're next level with your podcast, okay, like next level. I have like 4 or 5 that I listen to religiously, and then if somebody recommends an episode, I'll dip into that. But you have maybe like 20, 30 podcasts that you listen to religiously, plus you dip in and out.
I think it was, The Matrix. You remember The Matrix? I remember The Matrix, where they plugged Neo in and then they just uploaded him with stuff really, really, really quickly. I see podcast reading and things like that as the slow version of that. Like, it's like if you take what I consume in 10 years and that's what they uploaded into Neo in like a few seconds. It's a shame we can't do it any quicker. And I'm not a very fast reader, which really frustrates me. I wish I was a fast reader because I want to consume faster. But yeah, for me, that's the way I look at podcasts. I'm just like, constantly pumping education into my brain and just different ideas, different angles, and that's what it's all about.
Maybe you should fall asleep with your AirPods in, and maybe some of it might sink in.
I don't think I'd be able to sleep.
It's
bad enough with you kicking me in the back on what belt. So anyway, my podcast recommendation this week, again, that I've stumbled across, this guy started to pop up in podcasts, YouTube, whatever else, and I actually really like him, and his name's Rory Sutherland. He's a marketing expert. I think I first saw him on Stephen Bartlett's podcast, and then he's been on lots of other podcasts. And it turns out he's got his own podcast, lo and behold.
Of course.
And it's called On Brand with Alf and Rory Sutherland. Now, Alf is actually his company's name, which is a marketing insights company. But it's really interesting, and he's getting some great guests on there. He's getting some big hitting CEOs and marketing people. And this is a marketing podcast. They talk mainly about marketing, but it's always interesting to see and have different angles on everything. The best episode I've listened to recently, I referred to it last week, is the CEO of Appliances Online, AO, which I thought was fascinating. And he just... I just quickly tell this story because about the fridge guy.
Yeah, this is quite funny. Oh, no, I was going to say about AO when they rebranded from Appliances Online to AO.com.
Yes, with the marathon guy with the fridge on his back. So the story was this, that they used to be called Appliances Online, and there was a guy called Mr. Fridge or something
ran the marathon.
Great Northern Run marathon, I think it was. And he had an entire fridge on his back, ran the whole thing. And he was on Chris Evans, and they saw him on Chris Evans, and Chris Evans interviewed him and said, can we give a shout out to your sponsor? And he said, I don't have a sponsor. And the CEO of AO got onto his marketing director, said, get in touch with that guy now. I want to sponsor his fridge. And they sponsored it, and he was running, and he said, I was watching the TV and I couldn't even read the sponsor on it, Appliances Online, because it was too long, let alone anybody else. So anyway, he said our consumers started to shorten our name to AO. So he said we ended up moving to AO, and we bought up the domain AO.com, AO.me, AO.au, all over the place. And they still own the Australian one, even though they don't operate in Australia. And he said, talk about the things that you can't foresee happening. They built up a amazing level of SEO with Appliances Online and various other things. And when they went to AO.com, Google just tanked them, absolutely tanked them. And apparently it's because Google had indexed AO.com previously as Arabs Online, which for some reason just they weren't pushing. It was a derelict domain, and it absolutely tanked them. And they had to work perilously hard to re-get AO.com, even though it sounded like an amazing URL, which it is. It's so short, so it's so powerful. But it didn't work initially, and it goes to show that there's always hurdles to overcome in business, and you just don't know what they are sometimes until you're facing them.
No, but you can buy a simple indexing report that everybody should be doing before they buy their domain. So classic rookie mistake there.
People don't do these things.
This is one of the biggest companies in the world. They should have known this. Their marketing team should have saw that coming.
People make a million mistakes when they're trying to start a business. They're juggling so many things. They don't, they cut corners. They don't know what they're doing. And, you learn as you go along. So, so that podcast is On Brand with Alf and Rory Sutherland. Really interesting. Lots and lots of really interesting people on there. So thank you for joining us for another week's podcast. As always, as I always say, if you feel like you might have outgrown your current accountant, do get in touch with Claire and the team at Profit Cash Growth. That's profitcashgrowth.com. Check her out on the YouTube channel. Continue to listen to our podcasts if you like them. Make sure you've clicked the follow button. And please do, if you get a chance, leave us a review. Again, lots of people telling us face to face about how much they're enjoying and getting value out of the content. But it really helps us if you just tap that 5-star button on Apple or on Spotify or wherever you're listening. Type a few words in as well if you can and tell us what you really like about it. And we will see you again next week. Bye.